Elvis was walking down Beale Street when he heard his own voice coming from a guitar case on the sidewalk. But it wasn't a recording, it was a 16-year-old kid who had no idea his life was about to change forever. It was a humid Tuesday afternoon in Memphis, July 1976. Elvis had been feeling restless at Graceland and decided to take one of his rare unannounced walks through downtown Memphis. He was wearing sunglasses and a simple black shirt, hoping to blend in with the crowd. As Elvis turned the corner onto Beale Street, the heart of Memphis music scene, he heard something that stopped him in his tracks. Someone was singing "Love Me Tender" with a voice so pure and heartfelt that it sent chills down his spine. The voice was coming from a thin teenager, sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk, his back against a brick wall. The boy had shoulder-length dark hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in days, and clothes that were clearly too big for his small frame. His guitar was old and battered, with scratches and wear marks that told the story of countless hours of practice. But when the kid sang, none of that mattered. His voice carried the same soulful quality that had made Elvis famous, but there was something different about it, a raw pain that spoke of real hardship. The boy's name was Michael Chen, though nobody on the streets knew his real name. Everyone just called him Guitar Mike. He'd been living on the streets of Memphis for 8 months, ever since he'd aged out of the foster care system on his 16th birthday with nowhere to go. Music was all Michael had left. His foster parents had given him the guitar 3 years earlier, hoping it would keep him out of trouble. They never imagined it would become his lifeline when he had nothing else. Every day Michael would sit on this same corner of Beale Street, playing for whatever change people would drop in his guitar case. On a good day, he might make enough for a sandwich and a bottle of water. On bad days, he went hungry, but he never stopped playing. Music was the only thing that made him feel connected to something bigger than his pain. Elvis stood about 20 feet away, hidden behind a small crowd of tourists who had gathered to listen to the boy. As Michael finished "Love Me Tender" and began strumming the opening chords of "Can't Help Falling in Love," Elvis felt something stir in his chest. This wasn't just some kid playing cover songs for money. This was someone who understood the soul of the music, who felt every word he was singing. Wise men say, "Only fools rush in." Michael sang, his eyes closed, completely lost in the music. Elvis pulled out his wallet and walked closer. The small crowd parted respectfully as they recognized something familiar about the man in sunglasses, though none of them immediately realized who he was. As Michael reached the chorus, Elvis dropped a $100 bill into the guitar case. Michael's eyes opened when he saw the money. $100 was more than he usually made in 2 weeks. He looked up to thank whoever had been so generous, and his fingers froze on the guitar strings. Even with the sunglasses, there was no mistaking that face, the perfectly styled hair, the distinctive jawline, the slight smile that had graced 1,000 magazine covers. "Keep playing, son," Elvis said quietly. "You've got something special there." Michael's hands were shaking so badly, he could barely hold his guitar. You're just a guy who appreciates good music," Elvis replied, crouching down to Michael's level. "What's your name?" "Michael," the boy whispered, still in shock. "Michael Chen. I can't believe this is real." Elvis looked around at the small crowd that had gathered, then back at Michael. "You hungry, Michael?" The boy nodded, not trusting his voice. "Come on then, let's get you something to eat, and you can tell me your story." Elvis helped Michael pack up his guitar and led him to a small diner just off Beale Street. The owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, had known Elvis since his early days and was used to his occasional visits with unexpected guests. Over burgers and milkshakes, Michael told Elvis his story. The foster homes, the feeling of never belonging anywhere, the music that kept him going when everything else fell apart. "I know your songs saved my life," Michael said quietly. "When I was in my darkest moments, I'd play Love Me Tender and remember that someone somewhere understood what it felt like to hurt." Elvis listened without interrupting, seeing himself in this young man's pain. He remembered his own childhood, the poverty, the feeling of being different, the music that had been his escape. "You know what I hear when you sing?" Elvis asked. "I hear someone who's lived the blues. You can't fake that, Michael. You can't learn it from a book or a teacher. You've got to live it." What Elvis said next shocked Michael to his core. "I'm going into the studio next week to record some new material. How would you like to come with me? Not as backup or anything like that. I want to hear what you sound like, with proper equipment and musicians who know what they're doing." Michael stared at Elvis, certain he was hallucinating. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. But I've got one condition." Michael's heart sank. There was always a catch. "You've got to promise me you'll get off the streets. I know a place where you can stay. Good people who'll take care of you while we figure out what's next for your music." 3 days later, Michael found himself in Sun's studio, the same place where Elvis had recorded his first hit. He was clean, wearing new clothes that actually fit, and holding a guitar that cost more than he'd ever seen in his life. The session musicians were skeptical at first. Street kid or not, this was Elvis's studio time, and they didn't want to waste it. But when Michael started singing, the room went silent. His voice, backed by professional musicians and recorded with studio-quality equipment, was nothing short of magical. He had the raw talent of early Elvis combined with a modern sensibility that was entirely his own. Elvis stood in the control room, watching through the glass as Michael sang Heartbreak Hotel, with a pain and authenticity that gave Elvis goosebumps. "That boy's got it," said the producer. "Whatever it is, he's got it in spades." During a break in recording, Michael mentioned something that caught Elvis's attention. "You know, Mr. Presley, I've been writing some songs too. Nothing fancy, just things that come to me when I'm playing on the street." "Let me hear one," Elvis said. Michael picked up his guitar and played a song he'd written called Memphis Rain. It was about loneliness, about watching the world go by from a street corner, about finding hope in the smallest kindnesses. When he finished, the studio was dead quiet. "Michael," Elvis said slowly, "that's not just a song, that's a hit." Elvis made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He decided to record Memphis Rain as a duet with Michael. The song captured something neither of them could have achieved alone. Elvis's legendary voice blended with Michael's raw emotion, creating something entirely new and powerful. When they finished recording, Elvis turned to Michael with a serious expression. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it carefully. How would you feel about me helping you get a recording contract? Not as Elvis Presley's protege, but as Michael Chen, the artist." Michael looked at Elvis with tears in his eyes. 6 months ago, he'd been sleeping in doorways, wondering if he'd ever have a real chance at life. Now the king of rock and roll was offering him a future he'd never dared to dream of. "Why are you doing this for me?" Michael asked. Elvis was quiet for a long moment, then spoke with a sincerity that surprised everyone in the room. "Because somebody did it for me once. A man named Sam Phillips took a chance on a poor kid from Tupelo who had a voice and a dream. And because I heard something in your voice that reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place." Word of Elvis's duet with the street musician spread quickly through Memphis and then across the country. Memphis Rain became an instant hit, but more importantly, it sparked a movement. Musicians across America started paying attention to street performers in a way they never had before. Record labels began scouting bus stations and subway platforms. The story of Elvis and Michael reminded the music industry that talent could be found anywhere. Michael Chen's first solo album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard charts. He used his success to start a foundation providing instruments and music lessons to homeless youth. But he never forgot that Tuesday afternoon on Beale Street, when a chance encounter changed everything. "People ask me what it was like to meet Elvis," Michael said in interviews. "But the truth is, it wasn't about meeting a celebrity. It was about one human being recognizing something in another human being and deciding to help. That's the real magic of that day." Elvis kept the original recording of Michael singing "Love Me Tender" on the street corner. He'd had one of his bodyguards secretly record it from across the street, wanting to capture the pure, unfiltered moment before anything changed. Years later, after Elvis passed away, that recording was found among his most treasured possessions at Graceland. A note attached to it read, "This is what music is supposed to sound like, minus real and from the heart." Today, there's a small plaque on Beale Street marking the spot where Elvis discovered Michael Chen. But more importantly, the story serves as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply pay attention to the people around us. The story of Elvis and Michael reminds us that talent doesn't always come with a spotlight and a stage. Sometimes it's sitting on a street corner, hoping someone will listen. Elvis could have walked past that day. He could have enjoyed the performance and moved on. Instead, he chose to stop, to listen, and to act. In doing so, he didn't just change one young man's life. He reminded all of us that we have the power to recognize and nurture the gifts in others, no matter where we find them, because you never know who might be sitting on a street corner, playing their heart out, just waiting for someone to believe in them. The magic isn't in the celebrity or the fame. The magic is in the moment when one person decides to help another person chase their dreams. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. This incredible true story of compassion and the power of music shows us that talent can be found in the most unexpected places. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe for more amazing tales of when music legends changed lives. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their dreams matter, no matter where they're starting from. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone's kindness completely changed another person's life? Let us know in the comments below.